dishes done, and this happens once, it happens twice, it happens 3 times, and every single time the father, let's say he's leaving the dishes, he's not doing them. Why is he not doing them? He sees it, right, clearly. Does he have the ability to clean them? Yeah, he has the ability. So him refusing, because he's refusing, right? Is that a problem? Oh, perfect. Right? All of this really boils down to expectations. In what sense is that, okay, well, no, he was supposed to do them, therefore, I will not. And what is the problem? Or there's no problem, it's okay.
There's an expectation that was set if someone else is doing it.
So let's say the scenario I'm mentioning. It's the son's job. The son doesn't do them. The father comes home, he sees the dishes aren't done, and he's like, well, I'm not going to do them either.
Right.
The son is wrong, right? These were his chores, he didn't do it, no doubt. What about the father? Is the father wrong or is the father right?
Right.
The father's right? Okay. So what happens to the dishes?
It depends. It depends, right?
No, he's teaching him to be responsible.
Okay.
If he does it for him, then he's going to think.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Feel what you were going to say?
It depends on, is he purposely not doing it so the son can feel the consequences of not doing them? Or is it some critical thing that has to get done, so like that's a lesson for later?
So what do we do? This is a scenario.
We yell at the son.
Huh?
We yell at the son.
Yes. we just bust through the door, right? And we just start yelling. Okay, that's one. That's an option. What are some other options?
He should do them.
I'm sorry?
He should do them. The father should wash the dishes.
The father should wash the dishes.
Yeah.
That's an option. What is another option?
Example, you know.
Okay.
So, hey, kids look to their parents to set an example.
Sure. Second day, dishes aren't done. Father washes them again. Third day, a week goes by.
Father should wash his dishes.
The father should wash only his dishes. Okay, that's also an option. There's a lot of options out here. Beating the son, also an option.
Talk to the son.
Talk to the son, right? That's step one.
Why didn't you do it?
Why, like, hey, listen, I notice the dishes aren't done. What's going on? Right? That would that seems like the most logical step. You guys are wild. So you go and you ask the son. His son's like, yeah, I'm really sorry, Dad. I wasn't feeling well. all of these steps that you guys took.
That's not an excuse.
It's like, that's not an excuse. Get out of bed. So you go and engage, and if he says something like, "Oh, I forgot," where does that conversation become a problem? The moment he says what? He's like, "Yeah, I didn't do them, and I'm not going to." Then you can start escalating consequences, right? But the problem with me doing the dishes, right? I'm saying the problem with me doing the dishes is what? Has anything been communicated? Right, nothing gets communicated. Me only doing my dishes, what am I teaching?
Get away with it.
Not getting away with it. Me doing just my dishes, like I'm teaching selfishness.
Selfishness.
Right, I'm teaching selfishness. So it's like, oh, okay, so now if everybody, well, if Dad can wash his dishes only, well, I'm going to what? I'm going to start washing my own dishes too. So without conversation, because the important thing is what? Back to everything we started with, is setting what? Expectations. And expectations can't happen without communication. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to carry his own thing, he used to take care of his own things. Ali karamallahu wajhu, he said that a complete man is not diminished in his completeness by whatever he carries for his family. Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah, while he was the commander, he would carry his own wooden bucket to the bathhouse. Thabit ibn Abi Malik, he said, I saw Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu coming from the market carrying a bundle of firewood while he was Marwan's deputy at the time. And so basically Marwan was the governor of Medina and Abu Hurairah was his deputy. And even then, he was doing his own work. Somebody like remotely logging into this? It's a ghost? It's the jinn of Al-Hijrah. Oh yeah, bro, all of it, bro. That's it. Which AI do you use? Yes. So he said, clear way for commander of the faithful, O son of Abi Malik. So you have all of these narrations, even even very famously, people like parroting the narration of the Prophet ﷺ, who says, "Kana fi khidmat ahlihi," like he used to be in service of his family. Have you guys heard this one? I think the hadith is weak personally, but how do people understand that? What does that mean? Yes.
I have a question though regarding all these narrations.
Mm.
You know, what significance do they hold, right? Because in my head, I'm probably mistaken, maybe I am.
Yeah.
When something needs to be highlighted, it's more so out of the ordinary, right? If nobody's walking around saying humans breathe oxygen, because everybody knows that's a normal thing for humans to do.
Sure.
So is there a significance behind why these acts are pointed out?
Yeah. How do you define baseline if nobody communicates it?
Well, that's what I'm asking. Are these baseline?
Yeah,
Is this,
100%.
this is the baseline?
Like baseline is here, not these specific actions. That's not baseline. Because number one, we don't all represent or live in these contexts. These are meant to be representative of that baseline. Now, what does that baseline mean? And what does that show? It means like, don't feel like you're above what? Work. That's it. Right? Don't feel like you're above work just because it's your home. That's all this is saying. Now, these are just representation of what that is and how that manifests. That's all. And there are some things that, for some of us, it's like, yeah, that's pretty basic. It seems pretty clear. If it was so clear, why do so many people not practice it? And even like the clearest example, right? There's only one God. Like there's nothing. I don't think there's anything clearer than that personally. Well, there's a lot of people who believe in multiple gods. There are people who don't believe in God. There are people who believe in like the power of nature. Like, you know what I mean? Like you have like all these strange beliefs out there, even though something for me is like, well, this is plain as day. So I think understanding and setting baselines, there's no way to know what it is unless it's communicated in some meaningful way. Was common sense isn't so common, right?
Would you compare that as for the boundaries? If it's not communicated, you don't know.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the boundaries. Like I'm saying, like to solve a lot of these things, even Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, when it was like, okay, hey, listen, let me go refill the lamp for the fire. He didn't ignore his guest. Like he walked them through the process and explained to them like why he decided to do it on his own. Yes, no. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The ones who are humble before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning that when they stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning whenever they remember Him, they're what? They're humble. That's all it means. Here, it means be humble. Asbaq ibn Nubata, he said that it is as if I see Umar radiallahu an holding meat in his left hand and a whip in his right hand, walking through the markets until he reached his home. Some of them said, I saw Ali radiallahu an, who had bought a dirham's worth of meat and carried it in his cloak. I said to him, shall I carry it for you, O Commander of the Faithful? He said, no, the head of the household is more entitled to carry it. Again, these are examples, like he's walking with his own groceries. He's walking with his own goods. Even though both of these individuals had what? Like they had servants. They could have had other people. And what is this example of walking with beef or walking with lamb, all right? Like why use that example specifically? Why not talk about like carrying fruits? What is different about meat than it is from other goods? The smell, right? And not just that. If any of you have ever dealt with any type of beef or any type of chicken, what happens when you deal with it with your bare hands? Not necessarily slimy or dirty. Like, so the thing is, even if you remove that with water, it still smells like it has a smell that stays on it. So if you are a lead, like in these individuals, like Umar radiallahu anhu, Ali radiallahu anhu, like very specifically, these are statesmen, right? These are people who are greeting and dealing with delegates.
Vice President.
Right, exactly, like Jalaluddin, right? So you have these individuals who are dealing with the public at large, and they're still doing their own groceries. Someone can argue, like, so today, is it wrong for a delegate or a statesman not to do these tasks? Why did they have the confidence to do it? How come they didn't care? How come they weren't like, oh, well, we're politicians and we need to be held to a higher regard? How come there wasn't an issue for them? How come you had Umar radiallahu anhu who would just like, they're like, yo, where's the Khalifa? And they're like, yeah, he's sleeping over there. Why was that okay?
Trying to be humble.
Because they actually were humble, yes.
Well, that was the example set by Prophet ﷺ, right?
So this is what they saw from the Prophet ﷺ. Right? They never saw the Prophet ﷺ separating himself from the people. They never saw him having private gatherings. They never saw him a lot of these closed door conversations. They never saw that he would delegate a lot of the things that were related to him and his person to others. And what were they trying? They were just trying to mimic that. They actually didn't know any other way of humility except by looking at him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is what they embodied, and this is what they lived. And this to them was Islam. They're like, no. Well, for them, if you ask them, like, why are you doing this? They're like, well, this is how you're supposed to. Right? They didn't know any other way.
Is it inherently wrong though? Like if they choose, they have slaves and the servants carry their groceries or they work on their behalf. Or
Yeah. So there's an underlying thread when it comes to the Prophet ﷺ and the companions acting in this way. What was one of the reasons that they worked for this fierce independence and not relying on others and not relying on people even though they can? For them, this was a manifestation of their tawakkul. Right? Because these people had the most tawakkul. You know what I mean? Out of all of after the Anbiya, it's these guys. And one of the reasons that they took it upon themselves not to rely, even though they could, and there's nothing wrong with it, they were like, no, we're going to be as mutawakkil as possible. And that was really important for them. That was their goal.
how does carrying their own meat correlate with tawakkul?
Because they're not relying on individuals and other people to carry it for them.
That's a physical thing. It's not like
Even-
they believe like it changes.
So you're right, but why rely on anyone other than myself? My relationship is directly with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I don't want any distraction in that.
But it's not a reliance, it's a service that you're taking advantage of.
Sure.
That's at your
But nobody's talking about halal and haram, and that's where you guys are. That's where the conversation is skewing. You have to understand, like, even within the realm of halal, is there going to be scales of piety within that realm?
So if how does that manifest in like our present day? Like
Mhm.
if I pay someone to do a service at my house,
Mhm.
does that make it like
Sure. Can you do it?
yeah, I could do it.
Is it a good use of your time?
Maybe not.
It's as simple as that. For them, if they're walking home, is that in this example, very clearly and very specifically, he's going and he's watching over the marketplace because he's a governor. It's his job. He needs to make sure that people are not taking advantage of one another, making sure that their monopolies aren't there if anything needs to be broken, if anybody's price gouging, right? Like, that's his job. That's why he's there. And even the whip is more symbolic than actual. That he, radiallahu anh, he used to walk and people, they would perk up. They'd be like, okay, all right, Muhammad's here. Like, we got to make sure that we're not stealing, we're not taking advantage of anyone, we're not hurting anyone. For him, is him carrying his own groceries impeding on his work? No. So why would he rely on anyone else? Does that make sense? Like, that's his mindset.
So if I, for example, have somebody wash my car for me because I don't want to spend 2 hours to do it because I can
Again.
use my time doing it.
Again, it's a good use of his time. Is this impeding his work or slowing him down in any way? What you're talking about is delegating responsibilities. Did the Prophet ﷺ delegate to other people? 100%. When did he delegate? When he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he himself didn't have the time to do it, or he needed others, or he needed to train others. sometimes, like for example, with my kids, even when they were very young, I would make them do chores. Would they do a good job? Right? Like if you have like a 7-year-old brooming, how good is the brooming going to be? It's going to be really bad. And how much time is it going to take? A lot of time. And with that time, I still have to what? There's still oversight. Right? I want to make sure he doesn't get hurt. I want to make sure like if there's any glass pieces or whatever the case might be. So we will invest our time in different things. There's no doubt about that. But why do I feel as a father this is a good use of my time, even though the brooming is taking 3 times as long? Because I'm doing tarbiyah and I want to teach and I want to instill good, you know what I mean? Like I want to instill good manners in my child. And I want to instill responsibility in my child. But if it's like, okay, hey, listen, I can program this, or I can give it to Claude, right? Like, so I can program something, or I can hire someone to do it because I don't have the ability. So if I wanted the ability, what could I do? I can go and I can learn, right? I can take a course, I can do all this. Is it a good use of my time? Allah didn't send me on this earth to be a programmer and a lawyer and an electrician and a plumber and a doctor. Right? I can't be all of those things. So what do? All of it is just a good use of time in maximizing my independence so that the only being I rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then myself. That's it. And if there are other things, it's like, because the problem is like if I learn to code, or if I have to go, I don't have a lawnmower, I have to go buy the lawnmower, I have to spend, you know what I mean? Like, okay, is that a good use of my time? Or is it actually distracting me? Like that's where we have to make our personal decisions. It's like cooking food, going out to eat, right? Well, it's more cost effective to eat at home, right? It takes less time to eat at home. There are less distractions. There's less fitna when you eat at home, right? Like all of those things are there. Why do we still choose to eat out? Convenience, socializing, right? There's no you don't have to worry about cleanup afterward. Like, but all of these, what happens to the price? Like this is why eating food at a restaurant costs more than eating at home, right? And the labor behind cooking it. There's nothing wrong with delegating tasks. Nothing. Absolutely not. Yes.
But will this be in the sense that they're trying to follow the Prophet serving their family, and meat is something that is, or food in general, is something that it's firsthand. I'm actually contributing to the health of the family.
Yeah.
Even though I have my job,
Yeah.
I still have the effect on the affection in the household.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't distract me.
Huh?
Bring home the bacon.
Yeah. No, that's it. It's like, okay, this is serving multiple things. Number one, if he's in the market and he has the groceries, what is that telling the people in the market? That I contribute to the market too. Not only am I holding everybody else accountable, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. And he's doing this publicly, like he's not hiding it. The only one who used to hide it was who? Ali radiallahu anhu. But that's from his personal piety and wara. Umar was very public with a lot of the things that he did, purposely. And this is just a difference in personality, very honestly. And on top of all of that, if he's bringing home food, what is he doing for his wife and his kids and his family? Not just providing, he's saving what? He's saving them time. And a lot of times, like, doing groceries, why do men sometimes do groceries on behalf of their family or their wives? It's quicker. It is. Well, number one, there's definitely a speed element to it. There's no doubt about that. Right, they already have responsibilities at home. And not just that, what does it take for me as a man to dress up to go out versus a woman to dress up and to go out? Right, it takes a lot more, right? There's a lot more preparation involved for a woman to dress up and to go out than it is for me.
And you only get what you need.
Right? No, that's what we're saying, right? Like, if the grocery list has 7 items, how many items are coming home if a man is right? Only 5 of them, because we decided like the last 2 is not required, right? No, there's no need. Right? And the thing is, it's okay. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about motivations in the Quran, and He talks about paradise, for men, most men, if they talk about paradise, the first thing they're going to talk about the hurain. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like when women talk about paradise, like they're going to talk about the asawir, right? And they're going to talk about the melbas, and they're going to talk about the homes, right? There's a lot of worldly vanity things that is attractive for them. And that doesn't make it wrong. And if we understand, like, okay, this is how the nature of either gender and how they're different, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like, how do we keep it halal? How do we make sure that we're sincere? How do we make sure that we don't fall into israf and excess? That's it. Like, these are the boundaries that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set for us. But again, like, this idea of serving the family, this idea of being part of the market, this idea of holding a standard, this idea of hyper-independence, right? All of these things are really important these are qualities that we should all instill in ourselves. And again, it's not about delegation, because that is something that, like I said, the Prophet ﷺ himself did. It's about understanding, investing. Do I feel I'm above this? So if I send my son every week to do groceries, and one time he's not feeling good, I should have no qualms and no issues of what? Doing it myself. And I think one of the easy ways to rationalize that is like, okay, if my wife does dishes and my son does groceries, and every once in a while I have to step in, how many hundreds of hours have they saved me? Right? If you're just looking at it purely from a transactional standpoint, how many hundreds of hours have they saved me now that they're asking me for one? Right? It's a very skewed contribution. So we should try to do the best that we can to contribute in a meaningful way. Clothing is a really interesting one. So Imam Ghazali spends a lot of time talking about clothing and how clothing can be a sign of arrogance. How so? So israf can definitely be a part of that.
Especially this nowadays, what is it called? This like luxury brands.
Yeah.
So the moment you wear them,
Sure.
you can look yourself to be better than other people because they don't wear the same brands.
Yeah. Immediately you start creating that disconnect between yourself and others, right? You start feeling you're better because you have access to certain type of clothing that other people don't have access to.
But what about if you can afford it?
So if I can afford it, if I can afford to dress well, the Prophet ﷺ, are there times where he wore new garments? 100%. Did he look nice in those garments? Yes, he did. Anas ibn Malik said very clearly. Was that his regular dress? No. Even after wearing new clothing, how long would he ﷺ wear that clothing? And why did he wear it in the first place? To show appreciation. Most of the time that he ﷺ, when he wore a new garment, where did it come from? It was a gift. And what is the easiest way to show appreciation of a gift? By wearing it. And after he wore it that once, maybe 2 times, what would he do? He would give it away. Why? Because he didn't want to be attached. It's very easy to develop that attachment. You know, how many of us have that favorite pair of jeans, right? Or that favorite shirt? But it might be for different reasons. Yeah.
Allah like blesses you with like wealth or money.
Yeah.
Isn't it? You shouldn't like out of thinking, oh, it's humble for me to dress like I'm homeless, so therefore I'm not gonna wear like I'm not gonna drive a nice car or I'm not gonna.
Dang. Why we gotta go homeless, bro? There's no gradation. It's like Louis Vuitton.
Let me rephrase. I think what we're trying to say.
or living in a street tent.
I think you can still wear expensive clothing, but you can still be simple.
Right. So this is the question. This is the question. It's like, okay, hey, if there very clearly is a type or style of clothing that might attract a lot of attention. Because at the end of the day, what is going to differentiate between, I would say, arrogant and non-arrogant clothing? Is there a clear labit? Is there a clear line there?
Yeah. Also think of obnoxious.
So being loud is a little bit different. You never know, bro. Gucci, Louis Vuitton. Huh?
The modern version of dragging your robe behind you would be like it's your intentions
Okay.
and how you're wearing.
So wearing kingly garb was well known historically, right? What was the extravagance in kingly garb? So it would be dragging heavily jeweled, right? Like there's a lot that's going on, right? It's not just that, it's very, usually clothing for like a kingly garb, it's also very large, right? It wasn't like very thin sheets, right? Like you're talking about very thick, heavy material.
It's not very practical.
I'm sorry? And it's not practical. So now how do we kind of contextualize it to modern day clothing?
But does it matter what you're wearing? Is it more about inside, like how you're feeling?
So all of these things that Imam Ghazali has been talking about up until now, he's talking about physical manifestations of things that are potentially arrogant. And he's saying, okay, if you can cut off these avenues, it will help reduce the chances of falling into arrogance, right, and temptation. Again, sometimes it's not always a clear issue of halal and haram. Many times it's an issue of like, okay, there's a level of personal piety that falls into that. And not just that, can there be someone, for example, you have someone who is a brand ambassador for Louis Vuitton. Like that's their job. Their job is to be the brand ambassador. What kind of clothing are they constantly going to be wearing? Luxury clothing. Why? They have to, because they're representative of the brand.
Does your culture play a role? Like, let's say someone lives in a really affluent area.
Yeah.
And people in their neighborhood or the community have a certain lifestyle of like maybe the car they drive, or the clothes they wear, or the places that they visit.
Sure.
And you want to uphold that.
Don't worry, you don't have that problem.
I don't. I'm from Woodbridge. We don't have that.
All of those, there's a number of factors, right? We're just talking about generally, but in those situations, we can always talk about like exceptional situations. At the end of the day, like I said, it's like, okay, you have this brand ambassador, they're always wearing luxury clothing. Luxury clothing, is it always loud, right? Like, so one of the things you guys mentioned was that it's loud. Is that always the case? Not always.
Is it actually loud or is it perceived to be loud?
So either or, I think,
Could be fake too.
right, and sometimes there's fake, right? Like sometimes you don't know, right? Like why is it that we have the purses that have like, you know, the confetti, like Gucci or Louis Vuitton, and they're not real? That could also, but the thing is, over here, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talk about like branded or unbranded, counterfeit or real? Does it, like, because all of those things can actually lead to what? Arrogance. Even if something is counterfeit, even if something's not real, and something's a copy, huh?
Probably more so.
Maybe or not, I don't know, right? But like I said, how do I draw that line? There has to be, right? There has to be some kind of differentiation.
I think it's a combination of things.
Uh-huh.
As everybody's mentioned. It's
Sure.
I think it starts with your intention. It starts with the society that you live in and what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. It starts with your status externally, but your internal like perceived status. I think it's a combination of everything.
Sure.
And you put it all together and you try to dress as appropriate as possible, so that you're not, being arrogant intrinsically and also not making other people feel less than.
Okay, so let's look at the other end, right? So it might be difficult to describe arrogant clothing. Like, what does humble clothing look like? Apparently homeless. I don't know, right?
I think simplicity is a problem.
All right. So one way is simplicity. What does simplicity look like?
The color of clothes, perhaps?
So maybe colors. And does that vary from culture and place? 100%. So I think colors definitely does play a role. What else? Because what might be considered loud in American culture, is it necessary that it's loud in Nigerian culture or Kenyan or Arabic or like, you know what I mean? Like whatever. Like it's going to differ from place to place. So color definitely has a role. Style, right? Patterns, fit, sometimes even fit. I'll give an example. Suits. Can you have the same suit on two different people with similar builds and it has a completely different look because of the fit? 100%. If anything, I would argue what? That the fit actually makes the suit. Every time. Okay. Can that look lead to arrogance? It can. And the only difference between them is not the brand, not the color, not the style, but the fit. So, the tailor. So I think in general we tend to have an idea of what some of these things look like. So from my personal gauge, what are some things that I should be looking out for when I dress? Is it wrong to wear something to feel good? No. If anything, I think that's very healthy. Because when I feel good, what am I going to do? I'm getting more productive, right? I'm going to give, right? I'm going to have more energy. That's really important. At what point should I start drawing the line? Like, where do I know that, okay, hey, listen, this outfit is not good for me?
When it's not about feeling good but making other people feel bad.
That can be part of it.
Making other people feel
It's like if you're trying to flex on other people, right? Like if you're trying to impose on other people, then it's like, oh, let me walk into this space because I know nobody can afford this shirt. Right? That you know why you're doing that. Like we know why, what our intention is when we walk into those spaces. It's like, oh, I got these shoes. Okay, well, I'm not going to go to that neighborhood because they're not going to appreciate it, but I might go to this gathering. It happens. So when I'm doing it to impose or impress others, what is another reason? What is something else I should look for in myself? Okay, what is that? Can you expand on that a little bit?
You're asking
Yeah, what should I look for internally?
when I'm wearing something.
Yeah.
Do I feel better than another person
Okay.
wearing this? Right?
All right.
Does it give me some feeling superiority that?
Okay. Does it give me a feeling of superiority? 100%. Good. What else? Hey, what about that situation? I put something on and I look in the mirror. Yeah. That might be okay. But every few minutes, I keep going back to the mirror and be like, man, damn. You know, because this can lead to one of the things he talked about. Like one of the pathways, which is ujub. Like when I start becoming self-aggrandized and I start loving myself. So that's a huge red flag. But essentially, all this discussion is around is that understanding, like, okay, hey, listen, in general, try to, because I could wear the simplest clothing. Is it going to protect me from arrogance? Not necessarily. But it might lessen the chances. Right? And that's some of the goal of some of these ideas and these concepts. But from time to time, like I said, just like the Prophet said to him, he would dress nicely. And there's nothing wrong with it. And some of the companions who actually saw them, they're like, okay, mashallah. Right? They would actually be happy. They would, because other people, when they see somebody who generally presents themselves as simple, coming and dressing up really nicely, it's a change for them in how do they view that person. They're actually happy for that person. Like, man, normally he dresses pretty simple, but today, mashallah, man, he's killing it. Right? And we're actually happy for that person. I think that's healthy, like doing that from time to time. And we should try to avoid doing it all the time. Again, because the idea is to protect our hearts. And it might not, like we said, might not prevent it, but the idea is to minimize those chances. Yeah, go ahead.
This is random, but what's a waist wrapper?
I'll take you shopping, I'll show you. I'll take you shopping.
Isn't that like the ihram?
Like the ihram. Yeah. It's the rida. Like it's the lower part of the ihram. Yes, exactly. Because the dress during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, like what was their normal dress? Their normal dress is like, you know the ihram? Like it's basically how they would dress during that time. The only difference is like it wouldn't be exclusively white. So they would have like stripe patterns, they would have different colors, right? So that was very common during that time. Yeah. There's somebody who actually has, they did some sketches of what clothing during the time of the Prophet ﷺ looked like. I'll share it, inshallah. Huh? We're going to go shopping for that. Specifically the waist wrapper. The Prophet ﷺ said, simplicity in clothing is from faith. Harun was asked about the meaning of simplicity, and he said it's humble clothing. Zayd ibn Wahab, he said, I saw Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu an going out to the market with a whip in his hand, wearing a waist wrapper with 14 patches, some of them made of leather. So again, this is talking about the lungi, right? The rida, the izar, the lower part. And all those patches were there because he kept patching instead of going and buying something new. Like, is this like stylistically? Is this okay? Like to go out like this?
Kanye would say yes.
Okay. So, is there a way to patch clothing where it doesn't look bad? There is. And I think that's something that's really important because, if anything, simplicity is what's desired. What is the problem with looking homeless? But people think you're homeless. No. Okay, why is that a problem? Huh? Like, because exactly, if I look homeless, do I look like an approachable Muslim and an approachable person? No. And as Muslims, we should always be presentable. Like, we should be the ones who walk into spaces and places where people look at us respectfully. And I will not be looked at respectfully if I look bad. Like, yeah, we need to have the social awareness, yes.
So, I mean, there's that story about how when Umar was when he went to collect the keys
Mhm.
at the conquest of
Damascus. Yeah.
that one, okay. He went in those tattered clothes, and there's narrations that say that yes, he did eventually change, but then he also changed his clothes back. He didn't care about how it came across to people in his, in his tattered clothes, torn,
It wasn't the clothing. It was they were on a donkey, and it was him and his servant. And when they were getting close to the city, it was his servant's turn, because they took turns riding, because they only had one riding animal. So what had happened was, the servant said to Umar, he was like, yeah, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he's like, yo, you're the Khalifa. This looks so bad, right? Like, you're walking and I'm on the right. He's like, let's switch places. And he was like, no. This is what we agreed on. This is your right, and I refuse to do that. So perception is very different than presentation. Does that make sense? To not care about people's perception, I think an element of that is true, but as Muslims, we should still be socially aware. And why is that? Why is that important? It's important because if I don't know what certain social norms are, I'm constantly going to violate them, and I'm going to lose social trust. At the same time, I shouldn't let those social norms dictate all of my actions, because not all of them are going to agree with my principles, and not all of them are going to agree with my religion. And sometimes they would do this, right? Sometimes they would purposely dress this way. Why? To remind themselves of their, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a way to kind of force humility on ourselves. It's like, okay, sometimes, for example, if I force myself to take the bus, why would I do that? Even though I can take a car, like, I force myself to take the bus. Because it's a good reminder for me of the blessing that I have in a car. Or if I force myself only, like, okay, for lunch today, I'm only going to have white rice. Or for lunch today, I'm only going to have just plain bread. Not because I can't afford other foods. I do that, why? Because, again, it's developing the appreciation and going back to simplicity. Right? That's why simplicity has such a major role. Because the simpler we are, the more it reminds us of how humble we're actually supposed to be. All of this has very similar messaging in terms of just kind of being simple, trying to avoid fine clothing. It doesn't, like, we should always dress nicely, and at the least, we should always be presentable. And he says something here, right? Something that we all agreed on. It's not necessary that indicates arrogance in every situation. It just shouldn't become the norm. So he uses a hadith of Thabit ibn Qais. There's another Sahabi also who used to love, just dressing nicely. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, dress nicely. This is actually a show of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings on you, and it's a way of showing thanks to Him Azza wa Jal. He puts another criteria here, is that every time he's going to be in public, he makes sure that he adorns himself in a particular way.
He would put a cat in his house. Odd.
Have you seen my cats, mashallah? He talks about balance here, and this is something that's really important. So when we talk about ideas of israf, having balance, like don't dress shabby, right? Don't dress homeless. Don't dress extremely extravagantly. Like, having that balance is something that's really important, because we should always be as presentable as possible. So he just brings a few more narrations. I don't want to go too far into this, but
All these
yeah.
pieces of Islam quotes.
Yeah. They're all Israeliyat. They're all Israeliyat. So I think he found them in in other books. And at the end of the day, it's not, as long as the meanings are sound, right? He just kind of bring them. I think there are a lot of people who attack the Ihya, saying that, he uses a lot of weak hadith and things like that. It's not a book of hadith, right? Like, he never intended it to be that. And at the end of the day, he took a lot of from Qut al-Qulub anyway. So he's just kind of like reproducing a lot of those things. Saying that, a lot of his foundational arguments you can find in hadith in like Bukhari and Muslim. So, but he's closing. He's like, hey, listen, you want to be humble? What's the easiest way to be humble? Follow the Prophet. Is there?
Where does the word come when it says, in Allah Jamil?
Yeah, but Jamal. Yeah. So over here, Jamal, does it have to be luxurious? No.
But looking good.
I mean, listen, can I look good with simple clothing? I can. That's all that means. So over here, he closes with the dua, "Oh Allah, make us from those who you love. O Lord of the worlds, for none is suitable for your love except for those who you have approved. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send His blessings and peace upon our Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam." Inshallah, after Ramadan, we'll continue, and we'll talk about how to treat arrogance and how to gain humility. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who learn humility and are able to fight our arrogance. Tarawih starts on Tuesday. Just letting everyone know. Inshallah.
What time is the
I think 8 o'clock is the show.